It is my honor, pleasure, and duty to begin this new season of Difficult Dialogues.
Welcome. My name is Dr. Demetria Shabazz, and this is Difficult Dialogues at Amherst Media. I'm so honored to have as my guests today two organizers from Crossing the Waters. I'm here with Ingrid Askew, founder and executive director of Crossing the Waters Institute for Cultural Exchange. She's a local artist, director, and activist that has shared her skills and talents generously with the community of Amherst for decades. And Dr. Sonji Johnson Anderson, the Director of Educational Initiatives with Crossing the Waters, but she's also an educator, researcher in culturally relevant pedagogy, Black feminist epistemology and critical race theory, and performance ethnography. So welcome to you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. So first off, Ingrid, can you please share with us what is Crossing the Waters and how it began?
Crossing the Waters is a cultural exchange program. I like to call it an institute because there's many programs that come out of Crossing the Waters. It started in 2015 is when we got our tax-exempt status in our 501c3. But I think that it started much further back than that. It's a direct result of the Interfaith Pilgrimage of the Middle Passage, which was an interfaith pilgrimage retracing the journey of the transatlantic slave trade, where we walked the history of slavery in this country from this community, actually, from Amherst, back down the eastern seaboard of the United States to the Caribbean, Brazil, West Africa, and we ended in South Africa. And when it ended in South Africa 13 months later, I always knew that I wasn't going to come back to the U.S., having made that journey and learning so much about the history of slavery and learning a lot about who I am as an African. And I knew that I wanted to stay on the African continent somewhere to learn more. And how the history, what we don't know about the history there on the continent, what happened after we left. And so even though South Africa doesn't have the same slave history, I was very curious to learn about that history there as well. It was a new dispensation when we got there in 1999. And Nelson Mandela had just served his first 5 years as the first Black president of an African nation. And so it was an exciting time, so I decided to stay. So I stayed and I lived there for 10 years and just started creating cultural programs, learning about how theater making is done there. My background is in theater as a director and actor, and always loved the plays that came out of South Africa that told the story of apartheid. And so I began to meet a lot of those playwrights and a lot of ex-combatants and members of ANC who were a part of the struggle, and hearing those stories from folks. So it was a very exciting time for me, and learning. It was a learning for me. And folks were telling me, oh, we're so happy that you're here. The country is now opened up, and, our people need you to come and teach. And I was like, no, I need to come and learn. So we'll teach each other. We'll make it a cultural exchange, if you will. So I stayed there for 10 years. And then I moved back to the US in 2009 to take care of my grandchildren. And that's when Crossing the Waters Institute for Cultural Exchange was born on this side. Because I wanted to continue the work in South Africa. So I started going back every year and doing major projects over there. And but there was so much I wanted to do. I said, I need a container to hold all of these ideas that were up here. And so I created Crossing the Waters Institute, and we got our 501c3 in 2015. Yeah, in 2014, I'm sorry, and our tax-exempt status. And so ever since then, I've been traveling back and forth, doing grassroots fundraising, setting up projects over there, and continuing the work.
Can you give us an example of a project that you began there?
Yeah, one project is I started working with refugee women and children who were mainly from Rwanda and DRC Congo. And these were the women. I created a program called Woman Spirit because the women that I worked with they had varying degrees, and some more severe than others, of post-traumatic stress disorder. And so severe to the point where they could hardly speak. They hadn't talked about what happened to them, what they had witnessed, and they were just numb, and they had disconnected from their spirit. And I wanted to find a way to help them reconnect so that they can move on with their lives, to take care of their children, to find lodging, to find work, and continue their lives in Cape Town while they still had to be there. And so I got on the board of a shelter for women and children, and a refugee shelter for women and children. And I just started doing things with the kids, just if it was just singing and reading stories, and having them teach me little games that they play, and just to keep the kids active while the parents were just sleeping, And then the director of the program asked me if I would do a workshop to help the staff, because the staff was comprised of some refugee women and South African women, and they were butting heads because they didn't understand each other's culture or language, and they were having a hard time working together. And there's xenophobia is rife in South Africa. So sometimes the refugees are looked upon as they're coming to our country to steal our husbands, and they're coming to steal our jobs. And that's not the case, but they're not understanding what's going on. And so I created a workshop to work with the staff. And it was just like a 3-day workshop. And at the end of the workshop, these women had such a bond. They bonded with each other because I just got them to talking about their lives and their experiences, And I started out light, I want to hear some funny grandmother stories. Tell me how you grew up with your grandmother. What was that like? What was she like? And they realized they had similar stories and funny stories, And then the deep stories came out because the women started trusting the South African women and telling what happened to them in their countries. And the stories were pretty horrific. And when the South African women heard these stories, they embraced those sisters, So it was beautiful. And so then that was so successful, that workshop. And this was stuff I just made up. I did a lot of theater exercises with them and some trust exercises, and then just getting them to talk and share language and music and dance. And they had a great time. And so the director came back to me and she said, so now can you do it with the residents? Wow. The ones that are really, really, having a hard time. And so I did that. And it was remarkable how the women, because these are women who had been raped, who had been violated in the most horrific ways, who had seen their families killed right before their eyes, you know, and they totally disconnected. And I had taken a few workshops in this healing art system called Capacitar, and it's mainly to work with people holding trauma. And so I began using some of those exercises with the women because they didn't want to be touched. If I did this to one of the women just to give her a pat on the back, she flinched. She would flinch because she had been violated so horribly. She didn't want anybody to touch her. So I got the women to give each other hand massages. I would play really nice, soft music, light candles. I would bring them to my home. I would get them away from the shelter, bring them to my home, put fresh flowers on the table and make food for them. And walk them down to the beach. I lived near the ocean, and walk them down to the beach. Some of these women had never seen the ocean before. And we would do a prayer circle in the water, just standing, holding hands and praying together in all the different languages. So you would hear Lingala, you would hear Swahili, you would hear French, you know, and everybody would just pray at once. And then we would sit in a circle in the sand and just talk or just rest, you know, lie down on our blankets on the sand and just relax, you know. And that worked. And it was amazing to see how easy it was. It's really not that difficult. It's all about love. You know, that's really what it takes. It's just love and let people know and give them a safe, sacred space to breathe and catch their breath and reconnect to their spirit.
Wow.
So that's one project, one of many.
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
because it sounds like so much of what you're doing is about healing and using culture and what is human within one another, right? And to learn. So there's a new project, it sounds like this fall, that began, the U.S. Youth Ambassadors. Am I saying that right? Dr. Johnson Anderson, can you speak to that, please?
Well, the Youth Ambassadors program is not a new project of Crossing the Waters. You know, it's an engagement of young people in the performance arts and history. They get to learn about who they are. These are children of color, primarily African American young people. And you know, education is in everything. It is all encompassing. So while they are engaged in the arts, they are learning. They are learning about themselves, they're learning about their history, they're learning about their own cultural expressions. And so that is something that Crossing the Waters has done. My own son has been involved in the Youth Ambassadors program before, and it was a fabulous time. No wonder his mother is now trying to get all involved in this rich program, you know. And I feel every time I sit and hear the stories and the experiences of Ingrid in this organization, this just amazing work that she does. I consider it just such an honor to join and to bring what I know as an educator to help enrich the experiences and the activities that we do. And so, yes, we will be focusing on our youth. We want them to know who they are. We want them to be able to know themselves and to have that pride in themselves while they are learning and excelling, you know, both spiritually, academically. So we have plans to, you know, rekindle the Youth Ambassadors Program, and that will be a program that is housed here in the U.S.
So this
come
work is
fall.
intergenerational.
Yes.
And the program with the youth ambassadors, there was a component, at least in the past, where they traveled. So is there a plan to bring some of that aspect of education and learning and traveling to South Africa?
Absolutely. And not only to South Africa, we're trying to develop a history program where we want to travel with the kids, with the young people in this country as well, to historical places, the Civil Rights Museum, the plantations, mainly a lot of the places that we traveled to on the pilgrimage, so that they can learn about things that they're learning in school, actually going to those places. And so that's in the works as well. But of course, South Africa, we want to take them to Haiti. We have a sister organization in Haiti that we work with, Sonji, which is an amazing program. I went down with a colleague about 5 years ago to meet with the folks at Sonji. A friend of mine runs it, and it's an immersion program. And you learn the history of Haiti and how slavery was there and what's happening today in those communities. And so we have a really close connection with them. Our sister here, who is Jamaican born.
Yep.
We want to take young people. We want to make connections with Jamaica. We want to travel the diaspora.
Can you speak about how seeing these places and going to these sites, how does that impact potentially our youth in learning about themselves?
Well, it is a wake-up call, I would think. Actually hearing about it, reading about it, maybe even watching it on TV or on the internet is entirely different from actually being there and soaking up the spirit of these places, making it real, how powerful that is. And that is exactly why we want to give the young people this opportunity, so that they can be there. And we see the connection between the spaces that were occupied by our ancestors and bringing this, their descendants there to experience a space and experience the spirit of the space, making it real. And really that is what we want. Yes, we know knowing these things intellectually are important, and you play with them in your head, but we want to also take it from here to here. And that is where the real transformation takes place.
I imagine that's going to be really powerful,
Yes.
considering the last 2 years, many of our youth have been confined to the screens,
Yes,
small
yes.
and large,
Yes.
Exactly.
in terms of their learning taking place.
Yes.
So having them
Yes.
go to these sites, that's going to be really powerful.
Yes.
And more than going to the sites, I mean that's important too, that they see these places, but to meet young people, to meet their peers, to meet young people that look like them, that have the same kind of experience as them. That's for me a deep desire of mine, is to take our young people who really don't understand who they are and what they come from, and don't understand. They know Africa as those 60-minute or 60-second sound bites that they see on television of the little starving children with flies all over their face,
Or Africa, the country.
or Africa,
Sure.
the country.
Right,
country.
right.
Or
Instead of
Africa,
multiple countries.
where
Yes.
there's just dire poverty and people
Sure.
are just falling apart. And I want them to see what I've seen. I want them to experience what I've experienced. I want them to walk that land. I want them to visit schools, go into the neighborhoods, hang out with the kids, share their differences and their similarities, you know. And a few years ago, I took 2 African American kids and their mom to, and you know who the people are, and they were so embraced. The kids, they didn't want to come back. They weren't ready to come back. They wanted to stay. Now that I get it, you know, they got it. And it was so beautiful just to sit back and watch them meet these South African kids on a soccer field, you know, and be invited to come out on the field and play the game, a game with them, you know. And it was, their mother and I just sat back and burst into tears. We just cried, you know. It was so beautiful. And it's instantaneous, the way it can change and shift that paradigm, you know, the way we think about Africa or way people think about Africa, you know. And they were just beaming, and they took 10,000 photos. You know, they were different photos were on Facebook every day, you know, with these kids. It was great. And it's very simple. Just get them on a plane and get them over there.
Right.
And they do the rest.
Exactly.
You know,
the children
the learning.
connecting. Right.
Exactly.
It's really life-changing,
It
you know,
is.
to go back to, when I say back, because it's like, well, our memory, you know,
Right.
it somehow is still very much connected,
Yeah.
and our history, of course, is connected. But having gone to Mali and being embraced and
Yes.
seeing myself or my relatives in the walk or in the faces and the
Yes.
bodies,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it was really life-changing. So I can imagine doing this at such a young age
Yeah.
is going to be tremendously impactful. If we could share also about what's going on right now, this June, there's several events that are jumping off. Can you speak to what Crossing the Waters has planned this June, beginning with June 4th?
Yes, we have a roster of associate artists that are members of Crossing the Waters Institute. And so one of our artists was a woman who is, she's my dear sister, who, she's my pilgrimage sister. She was on the pilgrimage with me. She's an elder. She's a shaman. And she's just fabulous. She's a dancer. Her training is in dance and choreography. She's doing on June 5th a workshop that she has developed called Digging for Gold. And it's for women of African descent. And it's a fabulous workshop. I haven't taken it, but I kind of watched her as she developed it. And I think it's going to be very, very wonderful. And I hope we get a lot of sisters to come and take that workshop. It's an all-day workshop. It's from 10 to 6.
10 to 6.
Yeah. And it's going to be at Heron's Bridge. It's a martial arts studio in East Hampton.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the next day.
So it's June
Okay.
4th or June 5th?
That's on June 4th.
Okay, that's on June 4th.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
we get the date
yeah,
right.
on
And we'll give
June-
more
yeah,
info on the
okay.
website.
All
yeah.
right, and then the next day at the same venue, June 5th, she's doing a dance workshop of the Mufundala technique, which encompasses Pan-African, it's Pan-African. So there's a lot of different African dance techniques along with techniques of Catherine Dunham and Pearl Primus. Wow. And that was developed by a woman named Kariamu, who just passed away not too long ago. And she was from Philadelphia, and she was Amai's mentor. And she is going to teach that to the community. So we want the whole community to come out for that. And it's at that same venue on the 5th, and that's from 10 to 12.
That's
Oh, I'm sorry,
fabulous.
from 11 to 1. That's a Sunday, yeah.
Sunday,
From
yeah.
11 to 1. We had to change the time.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So we'll have that up in this
Okay.
show, so folks could go to the
Okay.
website and
Can I
find
tell
out
you a
more
little bit
about
about the
it.
following weekend?
Absolutely.
Because she's
All
also,
of June.
yeah, she's doing on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, same venue. She does what they call shamanic breath work, and it is fascinating and it's intense. So if anybody wants to take it, just be prepared for a very interesting 3 days.
Wow. So it sounds like
Yeah.
the whole June is packed.
Yeah, it is.
And what's fascinating is that, you can see how all of this work is not only culturally related, but it's about healing. It's about
yeah,
healing.
it's all about healing.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So if you could share about what is the vision, now we've been 2 years in this quarantine. A lot of the great work that you do and that you do as an educator has kind of been on hold, particularly work that you do in the community, right? What's the vision for crossing the waters as we come out? Not to say we're finished with this, obviously,
Right.
because numbers are
Yeah.
going up, but I think we're learning how to live with it to some extent. What's the vision for crossing the waters in this kind of new environment that we're all working in, where perhaps we need the healing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The vision is to establish 2 centers so that we want to leave a legacy. We want this to be sustainable and ongoing, well after the founder is gone, and so the idea of building something came to us maybe about 6 years ago, and we wanted to build a center that we call Tribe in South Africa, where it would be a retreat center and a healing arts center, where people from all walks of life who are about peacemaking and peace building and healing the earth and people and society can come to for respite, for retreats, for cultural learning. And now we've decided we want to build one on this side as well. So that, because we've gone international, Dee. We're registered as a nonprofit here in the U.S. and we're also registered as a nonprofit in South Africa. So there
Wow.
is an entity called Crossing the Waters Institute for Cultural Exchange, RSA, Republic of South Africa. So and that's-
Congratulations.
it's been 2 years now, and so we've got a lot of work to do.
Indeed.
A lot of money to raise.
Yes.
Can you speak to, your contribution as this educator that is doing community engaged work, not only with youth, but as we talk about, Black feminist epistemology, how do you see yourself being a part of this institution? How might you expand some of the learning to heal, so to speak?
Well, that's a huge question, by the way. But it, as an educator, there are so many places where I find that I can jump in and, try to enrich and fit with this program. So we're thinking about the Youth Ambassadors program over here, but in South Africa as well, working with young people who will be tutoring, leading, guiding, mentoring younger children. Those young people need training. Those young people need to, how to approach these young people, what are the best sort of learning techniques that they can perhaps employ in helping to engage young people and themselves. And I see that that is where I can be of some use in terms of helping to train these young people, and also working as part of the Woman Spirit program that Ingrid mentioned, working with these women who are in process of healing or in need of healing. My engagement, I want to be in the trenches with our people. I am a person who, through my own experiences as an immigrant African woman in this context, understand what struggle means. And I want to be with the people in the trenches, the people who struggle. And I have a certain set of experiences and skill set that I want to make available to our brothers and sisters in those situations. So I'm very, very excited about being, and very honored of being included in this project, because I find that it is so necessary. It's fascinating, but it is so necessary. What we can do in terms of the healing, in terms of the connection, in terms of the learning, in terms of the educating. And as I had said, that education is so all-encompassing. There's education in everything that we do, in the performance and the arts and all of that. And it will be a challenge in terms of getting all these pieces together and making sense of it so that we all learn and that our participants learn from it as well. But it is wonderful work that I'm looking forward to doing. And I'm really honored to be a part of Ingrid's life and this wonderful organization. And I, would invite as many people as possible who want to be involved in terms of making donations to the organization, making resources available to us as we do this work, to do so. It is well worth the effort and the thoughts and the ideas. It will go a far way in enriching lives and creating peace in our world.
Absolutely. I think we're both so lucky, like
Yes.
you have found one another.
Absolutely. This is my angel right here. I'm telling you.
But to have this work going on not only in South Africa, but now bringing it here,
Yeah.
and that you're able to cross the water, so
Yeah.
to speak,
That's right.
and going back and forth and sharing resources and knowledge and having healing taking place there,
Yeah.
but also as a person living here, knowing we need it here with our
Yes.
youth,
Yes.
and the mentorship, the
Yes.
mentoring. We know from research
Yes.
how important that is
Yes.
to our young people of color,
Yes.
in their growth
Yes.
and their success.
Right.
So thank you. As
welcome.
I refer to you as Mother Ingrid, thank you for doing the work that you do, and for not forgetting us here. I know you didn't, but bringing your skills and sharing those resources here as well. And thank you, my sister Sonji
Thank you.
Johnson Anderson, for doing the work you do. And I'm going to look forward to this program growing, the Youth Ambassadors, but also having Crossing the Waters now, a 501c3 or a nonprofit that is both, local but also international. Thank you for being my guest today. If folks
welcome.
want to
Thank
get in
you for
touch with
having
you,
us.
they can go onto the website, which we will
Yes.
share. Is there an
Okay.
email as well that you all, or should I just have that as part of the show, and I can also have that up as an email
Yes,
to
yeah.
get in
We'll
touch
make
with
sure
you
you get that.
directly. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us for Difficult Dialogues here at Amherst Media.